Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Marriage Matters. This is a podcast where we talk about all things relationships. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday night. For those of you who are watching for the very first time, my name is Glenn Coleman, and I'm joined as always by my beautiful wife,
Tanya Coleman. Hey, guys.
All right, talk to the people while I get this straight.
Okay, just throw me out there like that. How's everyone doing this evening? Hope all is well with you. Lot of things going on over here on our end, but we are managing, we are juggling, we are doing all of the things. But as we talked about the other week, we are all about consistency.
Yeah.
And so we're here.
Yeah.
Here we are. We out here.
We out here. That's all you know. She from Mississippi. That's why she said we out. Well, y'all talk just as bad as us.
Yes, probably worse.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't be talking about them.
No, about that.
Okay, anyway.
Hey, Leash, how you doing?
So tonight we're gonna get right into it. So what I want to do is talk about blind spots tonight.
Yeah.
Blind spots.
Heavy topic.
We had a really great conversation. We had an opportunity to visit with some friends last weekend, and we were just all talking, and they were just sharing with us some things that they've been talking to each other about.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, man, that is awesome because, a lot of times the reason why we don't grow, I'll just say this, I'm going to use this as an aid.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this tool that we use in coaching and counseling, and it's called the Johari window.
Yes.
So there's 4 quadrants to the Johari window. And it's, I should have got the graphic, but it's okay. So if you would just imagine there's a box here and it's like a window pane, right? So you got 4 quadrants. So you have.
My cousin Kathy said, leave Mississippi alone.
Hey, I love Mississippi. That's why I got a Mississippi girl.
Listen, every time I come back home, I talk like I never left.
And here, I got a question for Mississippi people. This kind of off topic.
Okay.
I have a question for Mississippi people. Why don't Mississippi people say all the syllables in Mississippi? Y'all don't say Mississippi. Y'all say Mississippi.
Right. We don't pronounce all of the syllables in words, period.
Oh, okay. I know we can't talk either in Louisiana, but right. I just always find that curious that every time you ask someone from Mississippi,
right,
especially the southern parts of Mississippi, it's like, where are you from?
That takes too much time to say. That's a lot of letters to say.
Mississippi. All right. So anyway, Johari window.
Yeah.
So you got 4 quadrants, right? So you got what you know, then you have what you don't know, then you have what others know and what others don't know. And there's one quadrant where you don't know and others don't know.
Okay.
And that's what we call the blind spot. In other words, these are the things that tend to they creep up, they happen. It's like almost some of the stuff that happens on autopilot, on autopilot. And there are things that a lot of times can negatively impact. Like maybe you struggle with anger, or you struggle with this certain habit, or you tend to shut down when you're confronted with conflict,
right,
whatever that is. And the bad part, especially now, if you are aware of this, that's one thing. But a lot of times, the problem with our blind spots is we don't know that we do them.
Right, and that's usually where when people deal with self-sabotaging behavior, that's where that's coming from.
Yeah,
it's coming from the blind spots, the things that you are not necessarily aware of. And other people, like you said, other people may not be able to see them, but they're there. And then so you try to figure out, why do I always respond this way in this type of situation? Or why do I feel this way in this type of situation? So the key is to begin to ask questions and also have conversations with people who are near and dear to you, like our friends were doing, that can give you some feedback. Not all feedback or criticism is negative. oftentimes if it's coming from those who care for you, it's to help you grow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And so it's important, you know, we and I guess even before, it's funny, even before I learned about the Johari's window and all this stuff about blind spots, there was something that you and we mentioned this before in our podcast, that we would do ever so often. And we don't do these as much planned, like we not planned, but we don't set time aside to do these. But we used to every few months say, you know, how am I doing? What can I improve on? So on and so forth. But that's basically the opportunity, because here's the thing, and I was sharing this with our friends. It's like one of the beautiful things about marriage and about close relationships is you have a person that can see your blind spots.
Right.
And, you know, blind spots, you know, I just thought about driving, you know, and that's a dangerous thing when someone's driving in your blind spot and you try to get over.
Yeah.
And it's great nowadays, we have vehicles that will tell you when somebody's in your blind spot.
Right.
And you know, you go to get over, and it, you know, I know, you know, have like the little light in the side view mirror. I don't know what that's what you call it, but you know, the little mirror you look at on the side.
Right.
And now there are even some other vehicles that if you try to move over, it'll stop you from moving over if somebody's in your blind spot.
We need to get Bethany one of those.
Yeah, Bethany's driving. Yes. Praise the Lord. Amen. She's just growing up and maturing, and I'm so happy about it.
Yes.
But anyway, but blind spots can be a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's the same thing in your relationships. It's like the thing that you don't know that you do. It's those hidden things that you don't know about, that those habits, when you say, the way you act, those things that you're not really aware of, that can be really dangerous in your relationships. And the beauty, like I was getting ready to say, the beauty, I think, of one of the beauties of marriage and close relationships is you are dealing with people that can see things about you that you necessarily can't see about yourself.
Right.
You know, when we were talking with our friends, one of the wife, she was telling us, she was like, you know, there's no way you could ever see your full self totally. I mean, you could look into a mirror and see yourself, but there's just some parts of you. That's a reflection.
That's what she said.
Yeah, and that's not your true self.
It's not your true self. It's just a reflection. I can see
only others can see all of you. Right.
Exactly.
And the thing about it is, sometimes it's hard and it's difficult, you know, for somebody let me just say it this way. A lot of times when people tell you what your blind spots are, a lot of times what happens is you don't want to acknowledge that. Oh, I don't.
Goodness gracious.
I told you I was hot. I'm sweating like TD Jakes. No, I'm good. I'm good. I was moving around a lot earlier.
Like, man, it's not hot in here. Okay. What?
That was a blind spot. I didn't know I was sweating. And so
goodness gracious.
That was a blind spot.
Okay.
So anyway, thank you for telling me.
You're welcome. I was like, I don't know if they can see it, but I can see all the little beads on your head.
Well, you know, we sweat a lot. Bald people, we sweat.
Really? I would think you'd be cooler. Okay, we're off topic. Let's get back.
Okay. So blind spots.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's uncomfortable when people tell you, you know,
right.
It can be very uncomfortable.
Right.
And a lot of times it doesn't feel good. But here's what I want you. Here's what I've discovered over the last couple of years. That's where true.
At least you sound making you sweat.
Well, you know, she does.
I have a tendency to do that sometimes.
You know, I ain't even gonna lie. I ain't gonna hold you. But what was I saying?
Oh Lord, you done really distracted.
Yeah, I'm all up now. But I've discovered over the last few years that that's where true growth happens.
Right.
It's in the blind spots, because usually the things that you can see and you say, okay, I need to change this, I need to change that. Usually those things, they'll cause you to grow, but a lot of times it's the things that we don't see that's holding us back the most in life. And so when you can have somebody in your life to tell you, you know, your how they say your slip showing.
Right. Come on.
You know, and even though that may be an embarrassing thing, but you know,
you may need to know that.
You may
want to know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes our ego gets in the way. Our pride gets in the way. And so that's why oftentimes we become offended when someone shares with us a blind spot, because they may be revealing to you a flaw that you didn't know you had, or maybe you were somewhat aware of it, but you were not fully aware of it. I think sometimes we need to be more open. We need to be more open to those sorts of conversations.
Yeah. And I'll tell you now, ego is the number one enemy to growth.
Absolutely.
You know, if you, and that's a lot of times, I think once we can get our ego out of the way, and, you know, I'll say this all the time, you know, a lot of, you know, when talking with, you know, namely with Tanya, but I'm learning this even from my kids and other people, because of the fact that I'm learning that I can't see myself fully.
Right.
So when people tell me things that sometimes rub me the wrong way, especially people who have invested time and energy into me, and when they say things, I'm learning to listen to what they say and not necessarily how they say. Because a lot of times it's the how people say that kind of rubs us the wrong way.
Right.
But it's like, okay, I know she may be saying this in a kind of rough way, but is it true?
Right.
You know, is what she's saying, is there some validity to what she's saying? And if there is, then that means I'm going to have to step up to the plate and grow in that area. I'm going to have to step up to the plate and change in that area. And that's how you propel, or you can move your relationship forward. Because and I know, man, ego, you can't, if you really want to grow, you know, everybody says they want to get better, everybody says they want to grow, everybody says they want a good marriage, everybody says they want great relationships, everybody says they want great relationships with their kids, you know, and all these areas, but you can't do that through ego.
Right.
You can't do that with, when I say ego, I hope you guys know what I mean. In other words, you know, if you're getting offended, because a lot of times the reason why we don't change or we don't accept what they're saying is because we're offended at what they're saying. As a matter of fact, there's a scripture, the parable of the sower. One of the things that, and I think it's in the Matthew's version, one of the reasons why the seed of the word can't take root is because of offense.
Right.
You know, and a lot of times when you hear truth, sometimes the truth can be offensive. But here's the great news about it. If you know it, now I can do something about it.
Right.
You know, and if you find yourself going from relationship to relationship, or if you find yourself going from marriage to marriage, you know, I always tell people, you know, it's like, you know, if you're going through all these relationships and you can never, you know, make friends or keep friends, or and I'm like, I always ask people this: what's the common denominator in all of those relationships?
Right.
It's you. You know, so it's like
you have to do some self-work.
Right.
You have to do self-work. You have to do some self-assessing. You have to take a look at yourself deeply and not be afraid to do that. You said it earlier that it's uncomfortable. You know, it doesn't feel good all of the time. Most of the time it doesn't feel good, but in order for us to have healthy relationships, rather than be in marriage, like you said, with kids, friendships, parental, siblings, whatever it is, then we have to do our work to be healthy, to be whole. There is, you know, I think one of the things that really drives us to do this is because how often have you gone to maybe some type of conference, some type of event, and you learned some things, you were really pumped up about it, but the application didn't happen. And so one of the reasons why we want to do this, because we want to be able to give you tools and tips and tricks, as Glenn says, to apply, to make it practical, because that's where the real work is. We can hear and listen to and read all sorts of great things, but if we are not applying them in a practical way to our daily life, then we're going to keep those blind spots. We're going to keep those areas of hardship and toil and lack of success, whether that be in your relationships, business, whatever it is, those things are going to remain.
Yeah. And so what we're trying to do is help you, or not just us, but people close to you. You have to allow them to help you create awareness in your life.
Exactly.
And that awareness is a powerful thing.
Mm-hmm.
When you are aware of something, that's when you can begin to change. And like I said, if you're tired of going through relationships and always, can't keep relationship, can't keep friendships, whatever, what have you, or if you just want to improve, anything that's not growing, we consider that to be dead. So if you, and I'm telling you, the key to longevity in any relationship, the key to longevity in any marriage is longevity. There's just some relationships that I had to, and I'm saying, I'm gonna be like ET now. Got to get the insurance bucket out. But there's just, and because this is live, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say they're just relationships that I just can't give time to anymore because they refuse to grow. It's like when you talk to them, they talk about the same thing, they talk about the same problems, and it's like, okay, bro, I'm so past that now.
Right.
It's like I have a wife, 2 kids, and a career. I can't keep talking about the
right.
So it's the same thing in our relationships. It's like, and that's why I think, why people, can be married for an extended period of time and then all of a sudden they want a divorce is just because there's no growth.
There's no growth. They're not having the hard conversations.
Status quo is no good. When it comes to relationships, status quo is no good. So you have to grow, and this is part of growth. Part of growth is becoming aware of your blind spots. And like I said, your spouse is a great person, especially if you've been married for years. There's some things that I would do, and Tanya would say, every time this happens, you say this, or every time I do this, you do that. And I'm like, I don't think so. But it was when I begin to be honest with myself, I begin to realize, okay.
But what changed after I said it to make you look at it?
What changed? Say that again.
After I brought that, whatever it is, to your attention, what made you look at it? What changed?
Well, for me is I love you, and I want to. If my actions are causing harm to you, and I truly love you, then I'm going to want to address those things.
But you became aware of them,
right?
You know what I'm saying? You before you may not have been aware.
Right.
We had and I won't go into the details of the conversation, but we had a conversation on our way back from Austin last weekend. And I asked you if there were any blind spots or things that I was not aware of. Right. And so it opened up a huge conversation about some things that not necessarily between you and I, but the way that I manage other relationships. Right. And so in the moment when you shared that with me, I can honestly sit here and say that I was not surprised and I was not unaware. However, it was very confirming and it was still hard to hear. And so I had to evaluate, assess, and reconcile my emotions and come to grips with, okay, yeah, you're right. God said the same thing, but I was like, nah. But then when you said, it's like, okay, yeah, I know it's something that I have to work on, right? It didn't feel good in the moment, but on the other side of hearing it and beginning to work on it, it feels good because I know that it's the right thing to do to better those relationships and improve my life overall.
And the other thing about it is when you became aware of it, now you can ask the question of why or where does it come from?
Exactly.
And then you can go to work on going back, because the only reason why you respond, you respond the way you respond, it's based off of self-preservation. Self-preservation.
That
right?
Is it.
That's why you get angry, because it's a built-in mechanism for you to defend yourself. So there's something in your past that is causing you or caused you to show up that way.
Right.
So maybe you didn't have a lot of control, or you felt you grew up in chaos. So
Mm-hmm.
you need to control everything. And so
Mm-hmm.
now that comes over into your relationships, and you want to control
Mm-hmm.
everything and everyone. And the people in your relationship may be thinking you're just a controlling person, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not that you're a controlling person.
Right.
It's just that you need to have that ability because of what happened in the past.
Right.
So now that you have been made aware of
Mm-hmm.
that, and now you can say, I didn't even realize I was doing that.
Right.
Why do I always have to have that?
Have
So then
that
you
control.
can go back
It's
and do
preventative
the.
medicine. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Mhm.
I'm trying to prevent the chaos that I've experienced
Yeah,
before.
yeah. So the opposite. So I'll just get into this. So the opposite, and where a lot of people live their life, the opposite of awareness is denial.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's two types of denial that most people deal with. Is stuff that they're pretending not to know,
Right.
and stuff that they really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we pretend not to know because you really don't want. If you acknowledged it, if you acknowledge that you're doing that,
Mm-hmm.
or that's your blind spot, then that means now you're accountable for it.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know, and now you're aware, then we'll praise God. Now I understand, because it can be, and it's like there's another guy that we follow. Shout out to Jamal King.
Mm-hmm.
He may watch this. I don't know.
Yeah. We hope so.
But Jamal is, I mean, you look at him physically, he's just like, he's cut. I mean, he's,
Mm-hmm.
looks like, he played football in college, but he kept that.
Right.
And he just recently said that for 2021, he got a personal trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was like, a personal trainer?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what do you need?
Why
It's
you?
like, it's like you work out every day,
Right.
all this stuff. And he's
Right.
like, well, I understand that. He's like, I learned to work out in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't work out the way in my 40s. I can't work out the way I did in my 20s. And he
Right.
talked about this. He said then when his personal trainer came in, he's like, I'm curling. I usually curl like 100 pounds. And
Mm-hmm.
his trainer was like, just do 25.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, but don't do your arm like that. Do your arm like this.
Mm-hmm.
And push it back out like this and do
Mm-hmm.
this. And he's like, man, he's like, I have never been, he said, I hadn't been that sore from
Mm-hmm.
that workout with less weight,
Mm-hmm.
but the proper technique
Right.
or a better technique
Mm-hmm.
than I have in, 15, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
My point is this. It's a lot of times in relationships, it's just the little things.
Right.
Because after a while, those little things just, I don't know. She may get mad at me for sharing this, but I'm gonna share it. You.
Oh.
She always fuss at me for doing this.
He always
But-
trying to throw me under the bus, y'all.
But not, and this again, this is a perfect example, because what I thought was her blind spot was really mine. So
okay.
so we were sitting in bed the other night.
Now I want to hear.
We were sitting in bed the other night, and she was eating, and I was like, "Do you know that you chew very loud?"
I was eating popcorn,
But
y'all.
no, wait, no, it wasn't just the crunch of the popcorn. It was I said, "Do you know that you just like you chew really loud?" And she was like, "What are you talking about? I'm eating popcorn." And so I said, "Well, let me eat." And I think it was Bailey was in the bed.
room. Mhm.
And she was just like, same thing. She's eating popcorn. So I said, well, let me get some popcorn. And I started chewing. And it was like, Baby's like, well, you're making the same sounds that she's making. Again, I couldn't hear myself, but I could hear her. So for me, I was like, man, this girl is chewing loud,
Mhm.
But it turns out that, so when I told her that, when we had the conversation, it was like, well, so do you. So it was like, oh, so that's not something.
It's not a personality thing.
Right. So, but my point is this: is a lot of times we do that in relationships, right?
Mhm.
And we always think we're right, and we always think that I'm the best, and and I don't make no mistakes, or I'm all. You got what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So then, when you have one of the things when you have those conversations, is
Mhm.
sometimes you find out, well, you saying that I do this, well, you do the same thing.
Mhm.
So now when I hear her chew, I can't say, man, this girl chew loud. Whereas now it's like, well, I chew just like her. So she got to deal with, the same thing. So
Mhm.
my point is, it kind of normalized that.
Mhm.
And I know that's a small thing, but you know.
It's a good example though, because there are things that we will quickly call other people out for.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and we do, if not the same thing, we have our own things.
Yeah.
You know, that we struggle with, or that we do that get on people's nerves, or your spouse, your kids, whoever, you know. They're just the personality things that we just tweak it a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
Just
And here's the other thing about this is it's the reason why we want to do this is because we love each other.
right.
You know, it's just like, you know, growing up, you know, your parents always told you, you know, when you got whippings, you know, I grew up in a whipping era, you know, they
Yes, me
whipped.
too.
But whenever your parents would whip you, they say, you know, this is hurting me more than it's hurting you.
Right.
I'm doing this because I love you.
Because I love you.
And you know, it didn't feel right like that time. But I understand the sentiment. In other words, you've gotta, me sharing that with Tanya, it wasn't out of I want to make her feel bad. It was out of I don't want her to go somewhere else and be sitting at the table and chewing like that. You know what I'm saying? Because then everybody else at the table gonna be. But I found out that I chew like that too. So
yeah, and it's not all the food, man. It's just the popcorn.
But my point is like there's other things in our life, in our spouses' lives,
Right.
or in our friends' lives, and a lot of times we don't want to tell them because we're afraid of their reaction.
Yeah.
I don't want to say anything because they're gonna.
I don't want to hurt their feelings.
I don't want to hurt their feelings. Oh, I don't want to deal with the
repercussions.
You know, right? But it's like if you love them, it's worth the risk.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? It's
so
worth the
good.
risk of me sharing this with you because I love you and I want our relationship to work and I want you to be your best self when you present yourself out to the world. So I'm going to share this with you.
Right.
And it's no, and that's the other thing with this is you don't approach this with malice. You don't say it, you know, trying to take shots.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. It's always from a place of love.
It sounds like you had something pretty good to say.
Well, I was gonna say, because you said that I'm sharing this with you because I love you. And if I don't share it, if I hold it back from you, if I don't share it with you, then I'm not operating in love. People who don't love you and they see your blind spots, they're not gonna tell you. They will talk about you, but they're not going to tell you. But the people who care about you and love you, they will tell you to help you grow. They will tell you from a place of love to help you grow. And so, and that kind of leads me to another point, that sometimes people who don't care about you will share things with you that may not be spirit-led either. But they may be trying to get something from you. So you have to be very, very mindful and discerning and prayerful about the people trying to pour into you or point out things to you that you may need to work on. So make sure that it is someone that you know loves and cares about you.
Right. And that's what I was going to say too. When it comes to your marriage, and you know, the tendency is to call somebody and complain about your spouse and all these things that they're doing and what they're not doing. You know, have you ever talked to your spouse about that?
Right.
Because what that other person is going to do is just going to tell you most of the time. Sometimes if they're a really good friend, they're gonna call you on it.
Right.
But
that's why I love my best friends, because they will tell me about myself.
Yeah. Most time, what your friends are gonna do, they're gonna go, well, yeah, I understand, bro. Look, I understand, man. You know, whatever. Mine do the same thing. Or you girl, you know, are you right? You know, man, men ain't nothing but trash. That's, you know, whatever. But my thing is this. My suggestion would be: Have you ever talked to your spouse about that? Have you ever mentioned that to you? Because here's the crazy thing. Maybe if you mention it to them, maybe they'll change.
Yeah.
You know,
maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't need your support to help them change, to help them grow.
Because we all come from different, you know, like I remember when Tanya and I got married, you know, there's so many things that culturally, even though we're both African American, came up well, pretty similar as far as our belief system. But there were just some things that she would do, even still to this day, there's some things that Tanya does, and I look at it and I'm like, I don't know why she got to do it like that.
Same.
And the same vice versa. But just imagine how much more, just emotionally, we talk about this all the time. Like I always talk about how in my family, we didn't talk about issues a lot. We just kind of, it was just like, okay, let's not talk about it. Let's just, it'll work itself out. And then from your side, y'all really talked about things. It was heated. So she's used to talking things or arguing things out. And I'm just like, I don't want to talk about it at all. So just imagine how that can affect our relationship. Right. So those are just things, again, I'm kind of getting off, but we're still talking about blind spots. You've got to address those and don't be afraid of them, because it's in those blind spots where a lot of growth can happen. And when you're aware of something, then you can do something. Man, look, it's amazing to me. And I said this a couple of episodes ago in Ask for What You Want. But it's like, it's amazing to me how many couples really don't have these conversations. Yeah. And they get mad about them. And like I said, they call other people and talk about their spouse about those things. And it's like, have you ever thought just to maybe ask them about it? And again, not in a
malicious
just
kind
really,
of way, but really in a way that's healing and to grow. And I say this all the time. One of the beautiful things about marriage, I believe that God did, was that he created an environment for healing. And it's not that your marriage, that getting married will fix you or fix your issues or solve all of your problems. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that in the marriage, because we all come with stuff, we're all broken in some area of our lives, but in the marriage, through the marriage, whether that be with your spouse, in the relationship or what have you, there is healing can take place when you're open and you're willing to do the work. A lot of times people don't want to hear it, when their spouse says, well, babe, you're really overspending. This is the budget. I feel like, every time dealers runs a sale, you have to go and get, 5 pairs of shoes. We really can't afford to do that. And then, she's upset or he's upset because this is what they've been doing before they got married. Well, listen, we have goals. We have financial goals. We can't be running off and, overspending and all these kinds of things. So we have to recognize things that are being brought to our attention for our good, and not be so quick to get offended and become defensive.
And that's kind of been my goal the last few years is again, when Tanya comes to me with something, I say, okay. And I'm just going through my thought process. It's like, first of all, sometimes I do get offended. It's like, perfect example. I was working on something yesterday, and I don't want to get specific because this involves someone else. Anyway, I was working on something for someone else, and I had done all of the work and I got everything set up. And so she says, well, don't you think this, and this? And initially I was like, woman, you seen me sitting here all this time working on this. You should have brought that up earlier. But I knew that she was saying that not to cause me more problems. It's like she really cared for me and she really cared for this other person. So it was like her suggestion was better. So then I had to put my ego aside and said, you know what, you're right. And I guess my point is like I go through this, and this takes practice and it takes work, but I go through this process in my head that, okay, Tanya loves me. Right. So if I believe that she loves me, then she's not telling me this to make fun of me or to make life harder for me. She really wants to make things better. Right. You got what I'm saying? So when you can go through that and you understand that, and then it's like, so if I make these changes, not only I'm going to make life better for me, I'm going to make life better for her. Probably I'm going to make life better for my girls. Probably I'm going to make life better for my coworkers and everyone that I deal with. Right. You know what I'm saying? In life. And so that's how you have to approach this. So I guess our encouragement to you tonight is to be brave enough, be bold enough, be
Mhm.
courageous enough to have the conversation. Ask your spouse,
Yeah.
and because typically what happens is we only shout out each other's blind spots in arguments.
Right.
And that's
not the time.
that's not the time, right? So be courageous enough. If you've got to sit on the sofa tonight or wherever, just hey, is there anything that I can improve or and ask them, do I have any blind spots I need to know about?
Things about
And
myself
you may
that
have
I
to
don't see.
right, you may have to explain that to them, and they may tell you, they may be shocked at first that you're asking, but then they may tell you, and whatever they say, remember, you can't don't get upset about it. Just take it in and be real with it. And here's the other thing about that too is you can't tell another person what their truth is. That's their truth. So if Tanya feels a certain way about what I'm saying or what I'm doing, I can't say, well, that's not my intentions to make you feel that way. Well, unfortunately, intentions, right. It doesn't mean much because that's the way she interpreted it. So if I pay attention if I stop trying to defend what I said, and I didn't mean, no, let me say it this way. If I stop trying to defend my intentions and then say, okay, what can I do to adjust so that you don't feel that way?
Right.
Because even though it's not my intention, that doesn't change the fact that I hurt her.
That's the way it's being received.
Right. So just have these conversations. This is grown up stuff right here. So if you want this is one thing that's going to cause your relationship to grow leaps and bounds in every area, and our saying is we talk about everything often, all the time, something like that. I messed it up, but you know what I'm trying to say.
It's okay.
Anyway, so you got anything else to say about that?
No, I see we got a couple comments on the whipping.
Yeah, man, look, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we didn't understand it back then, and but we get it now.
Yeah.
Our parents were doing the best that they could, to teach us to go in the right direction. I know many of us don't subscribe to that now, and that's fine too. However you choose to teach your kids, as long as you're teaching them. As my mother-in-law say, raise your kids, okay?
Raise them. So with that being said, guys, we want to thank you guys for joining us tonight for Marriage Matters.
Yes.
We so appreciate you guys. And again, we're just doing this because, again, all we want is we want people to grow. We want marriages to grow. We want marriages to work.
Yes.
Marriage is, we always say that marriage is kind of like it's the basis of society, whether you want to admit that or not. When you look at it, the family shapes the children who later go out into the world and change the world. Yeah, exactly. And I always say, the first thing that God created after he created the world was a marriage. Yeah. That's what he did, right? So we just so appreciate you guys supporting us. Please share this, like it, comment, all those things. Thank you, everybody, for watching, for sticking with us. I just want to remind you guys a couple of things. You can follow us on Facebook, which if you're watching this, you are following us on Facebook, probably. So, but Facebook is a Marriage Matters 0526. Instagram, same thing. Follow us on Instagram. We're probably going to start going live on Instagram as well. Yeah. My wife has been telling me we need to go live on Instagram. So I'm not just saying, girl, we don't need to go live. I'm taking her advice. Okay, yeah, we probably need to go live on Instagram. Yes. So I just got to figure some things out logistically. On YouTube. So we post all these to YouTube. We're actually live on YouTube right now as well. And also now the Marriage Matters podcast, the audio versions are now available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. And pretty much every other digital outlet. There's a ton of them that we're on, but those are the major ones: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, and Anchor. So look, if you like to listen, I know I love listening to podcasts in the car. So I listen to podcasts in my car while I work, while I clean up. I'm always listening to podcasts. So if you're a podcast listener, please look us up on Apple Podcasts, and for you Android folks, you can look us up on Google Podcasts.
Said that like some kind of way.
No, I like it. I was messing with Android phone this weekend. It's like, okay, this is pretty cool. But I'm still Apple for life. Rest in peace, Steve Jobs. So Apple Podcasts, and when you listen to us, especially on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review and a rating. That just helps us get more listeners, right?
Yes.
So we want to get this message out to as many people as possible. So that's all I have for tonight. Do you have anything to add, my lovely bride?
No, I don't have anything. Wishing everyone a wonderful week this upcoming week, and a good rest of your night.
All right. Well, that's all we got for you guys tonight. So this is Glenn and Tanya Coleman reminding you that
Your marriage matters.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.